Go. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Bucknell Fellowship. Again, thank God for all of you that are here. Thank you for your giving, those who are online. All right, thank you for, you didn't have the opportunity to give, God bless you anyway. I just appreciate you listening to the truth. And so we thank God for that. Just a couple quick announcements. I want to recognize some people. Brother Joe and Sherry here. I did a Bible study at their house some while ago, and they're really good friends of Dennis. And as you can see, he's an Auburn guy. Okay, War Eagle, yeah, War Eagle. And so again, we had a great time with them. In their home. They were opened up their home to me. I was able to teach there. I had a wonderful time. And so again, we thank God for seeing them. Haven't seen them in quite some time, but I thank God for them. Amen. And they're really good friends of Dennis and Susan, so we thank God for them. Now, to Dennis and Susan, they gave this card. I asked Dennis, was it okay? He said, like this one. I think that means okay. But they said, "Dear Kevin and Bucknell Fellowship, thank you so much for the generous gift and prayers and kind words of encouragement. They have touched our hearts and are so appreciated. Love, Dennis and Susan." Amen. And so to those of you online and to those of you who are here, they want to say thank you. And I also thank you and appreciate for your prayers, also for them. Amen. As well. So we thank God for them. And also Brother Maurice, he has his family here, his sisters here from town. We thank God for all of them. His family and friends there, so we thank God for him and for them. And so again, hopefully they enjoy the service, and they'll be going back to South Carolina. But if you guys can, we live stream, you guys can always watch us if you're there. And so again, we thank God for all of you that came out today, all of you who are here normally. To those of us who are faithful, I thank God for all of you as well. Because again, I love to preach and teach the Word of God, but if nobody's here to listen, okay, I would just be preaching, just to be teaching. So again, I thank God for all of you that thought it not robbery to come out this morning and hear the truth of God's Word. We'll dive back in to 1 Corinthians chapter number 10, okay? Again, as I said before, the first time, it is a lot of information just in these first couple of verses, and we went through this issue of baptism and how it's not water, okay? And so we'll do that. And again, just as a reminder, we'll have our, for the people that are online, we'll have our Founders Day, July 21st, and our Founders Day picnic extravaganza, okay? We'll have that on July 20th, all right? And so I know some people that are watching online, they'll be coming down to be with us for that celebration. So again, we thank God for all of them. Also, 1 Corinthians chapter number 10 now. All right, so now we went through verses 1 and 2. Paul says, "Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And did all eat the same what? Spiritual meat. And did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was who? Christ." Now look at verse 5. "But with many of them God was not well what? Pleased. For they were overthrown in the what? Wilderness. In the wilderness, okay? All right, now these things were our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also what? Lust. And again, we talked about an example. Because this is not, we're not a part of this group, all right, these things that we're reading is an example to us, okay? And so we're to follow this to understand how we ought not to be lusting after things, okay? In a spiritual sense, this is where they were lusting after evil things. Okay, and so we ought not to do that. God hated sin then, and he hates sin now. Okay, all right, and so understand we can learn from their example as how God does not like certain things. God does not like disobedience. He does not like sin. All right, although we're under grace, okay, all right, that does not mean that we can just do anything we want. But the more we learn about God, the more our mind is transformed, the more our behavior will follow in line of that, as Paul says, becoming a Christian. Okay, or becoming a saint, all right? And so understand, we're going to go over these things as an example to us, okay? And again, we study the whole Bible. We just rightly divide and make the distinctions that God requires for us to do, okay? And so again, we'll look at this, mainly look at verse 3 here and verse 4. Did you have something?
Well, I was going to ask you a question about idolaters.
Okay.
In this generation, we don't have, as some people do, with brazen, bronze statues and stuff. What else could you call idols as far as people go?
Anything that you put in front of God or above God. Some people idolize cars. Some people idolize anything that you put. What did you say? Sports teams, right? Right. And as a matter of fact, I hear a lot of people say this person deserves a statue. Thank you. This person deserves a statue. Okay, that's a form of idolatry. To put a statue of somebody up. As a matter of fact, you know how they have the pictures of Jesus in people's houses? Yeah, the Lord's Supper. That's idolatry. That ain't Jesus on those pictures. Okay, that's Caesar Borgia. Okay, so understand those types of things is idolatry. Okay, to put that up in your house. All right, whatever color you have Jesus in your house, that ain't him. Okay, so all of that's a form of idolatry. All right, so understand anything can become forms of idolatry. Those things that we worship or put before God. All right.
Okay, so it's not just brazen bronze statues.
Right.
Thinking about
and the scriptures. Right. And understand now when we go back to sports, I don't want people to think. If you go watch a football game on a Sunday, okay, and you miss church, that's perfectly fine, okay? I know some churches tell you, oh, you see, something might happen while you're at the football game because you missed church, okay? Listen, okay, all of that's nonsense, okay? So now, if you want to go to a game, okay, we get out early enough for you to go, so you can still come to this church, okay? but understand, when it comes to that, I mean, that's really here nor there, okay? If you want to go enjoy a football game, go enjoy a football game. And I can remember the pastors of our old church and the most other churches, they tell you not to even go to a football game. Okay? And I remember the first thing I said, because remember, when I played in the NFL, I played on Sunday. Okay, and so the question I was asking was, should I not play on Sunday? You know, but because I was paying so much tithes to the church, okay, the answer was no, God honors that. but again, understand now, because at the time I'm thinking like, well, because if I'm in the NFL, I play on Sunday. So if you're saying that that's bad, then I shouldn't be playing on Sunday. But they appreciated all the money they were getting, so I guess it's a catch-22. But understand, going to a football game, a basketball game, or what have you, listen, and that's why even here, we don't take attendance, we don't take a role to see who's coming to church, who's not. I appreciate every time you do come, and more importantly, I appreciate when you come because there's fruit abounding to your account. Okay, so, but again, I'm not taking roles and, hey, I ain't seen you in a while, you know, because that makes people feel uneasy, okay? And we're not about that, all right? So understand, I just wanted to clarify, because some people have an understanding that you can't go anywhere outside of church. If it's Sunday, you got to be in church, you know. I would hope that you be here. I'm going to be here every week, okay, mostly every week. All right, and I would hope that you're here so that you can learn and understand as well. But if you don't come, please don't feel like you're going to go to hell because you didn't come to church, okay? And again, unfortunately, I have to say that because some people, that's how they teach and that's how they make people feel, okay? And again, I know this from experience, so that's why I'm saying that. All right, so again, all right, now.
The verse go, let no man tell you about what day.
Right. Judge you. Colossians 2:16. All right. Let no man judge you therefore in any meat, drink, any holy day. All right. Romans 14. One man esteemeth one day above another. One man esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Okay. Romans 14:5. All right. So again, if you want to go to the game, go to the game. If you want to come to church, go to church. All right, look at this. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 3. And did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, but they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. Now, we're going to go back to the Old Testament to figure out what this spiritual meat was and what this spiritual drink was. Now, we said something earlier. Go to Exodus. We said something earlier. What did we say it was?
Manna and
job.
Okay. All right, go ahead to Exodus, I think I want 16. Yeah, Exodus 16. All right, we'll get into this issue. All right, now, what is manna?
Some sweet.
Some
It's sweet.
bread.
It's sweet.
Food from heaven.
Whose food was that?
God.
More specifically.
Israel, that's what it was.
Israel.
What you talking about? Manna from heaven?
Yeah. What does the Bible say? Whose food was that?
Heaven.
Huh?
Heaven, right?
Okay, it came from heaven. All right.
Other gods, I guess.
All right, that might be a Jeopardy question.
Uh-oh.
No, but we'll get into it right here. Look at Exodus 16, because the Bible says that. I don't want to give it away. We'll get to it. We'll answer that question of whose food.
Christ.
Huh?
Type.
It was a type of Christ, but it was somebody's food that the Bible specifically says. Look at this, Exodus 16. Let's start at verse 1. And again, we're going back to the Old Testament because, again, we study the whole Bible. We just rightly divide and make the distinctions that we're supposed to make, okay? Look at chapter 16 of Exodus. Look at verse 1. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against who?
Moses and Aaron.
And the what? Now, who was Aaron?
His brother.
Moses' brother. Who else was he?
First priest.
The priest, okay? And Aaron's children and his lineage became the Levites, or the Levitical priesthood, the ones that would teach the law and teach God's word in the temple, okay? And Moses had some type of speech impediment. He didn't want to speak, so God had Aaron to do what? Speak for him, all right? Now, so the people did what against these two? They murmured against them, okay? As a matter of fact, in 1 Corinthians 10, Paul is going to say this. I'm going to read it real quick. All right, verse 10, he says, neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Again, it's an example for us, okay? But God was actually destroying them and killing them for murmuring against the spokesperson that he sent.
Amen.
Jesus says in the book of John, whomever I send, okay, then I send thee of the Father. That's who you ought to obey. So now, Christ sent Paul. And so because he sent Paul, that's who we're to follow and who we're to follow as he's a follower of Christ, okay? Look at this, Exodus
Says
16.
the whole congregation.
Huh?
Says the whole congregation.
Absolutely, right?
So you kill the whole congregation?
Now, watch this. Did he?
No.
Huh?
Well,
No.
we know he didn't kill the whole congregation.
He did?
He killed 23,000. He can kill all of them. If he did, it wouldn't have been a remedy.
All right, watch this. Now, watch this. That's a good question, okay? Now, how do I ask this without giving the answer? All right.
You want to
How many times did God give the nation of Israel the law?
Which law?
Twice. Twice.
Huh?
Twice.
Okay. When did he give it to him a second time? What book?
Deuteronomy.
Huh?
Broke it.
In Deuteronomy. Okay, so now, when he gave the second giving of the law, we'll get to those scriptures in Deuteronomy, were the same people that he was talking to here in Deuteronomy?
Yeah.
Were they?
Lord, somehow.
All right, watch this. Watch this.
40 years in the desert, who died?
That's a good point. We're going to get to all of that. All right. Let me get to it. It's a lot here, but it's going to be, hopefully this should be just as interesting to you as it is to me, okay? Look at this. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with what?
Hunger.
Interesting that they would say that. All right, so God brought them all the way out of Egypt just to kill them in the wilderness on what? Hunger.
Jesus.
All right. Now, that is interesting for them to say that, okay? Where were they at?
They were in the desert.
In the wilderness, okay? Is that significant to anybody?
Yeah.
What?
Well, only, Caleb and Joshua made it to the promised land.
Okay, okay.
Because he killed them all.
Not really.
Right.
They died out.
He didn't kill them all.
All right.
So bad.
He left the remnant. The youngsters who were young still survived. Those who were under a certain age, matured in the desert, they still survived. They didn't all die.
All right.
The ones that were born there.
All right.
Anybody that was alive coming across, dead.
Yeah, but that's
Right.
not the whole assembly. If there's some
Right.
still left, it's got to be a remnant. If it wasn't no remnant left, then there would be no Israel.
All right. So now the remnant can start with Joshua and Caleb.
It did, in a sense.
Okay. So watch this. All right. Now look at this. Verse 4. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or what?
No.
Or no. And it shall come to pass that on the sixth day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be what?
Twice as much.
As they gather what?
Yeah.
Why is that? Huh?
They shouldn't work on Sunday.
They shouldn't work on the Sabbath, okay? So now, they shouldn't work on the Sabbath. So 6 days they would have worked, and the seventh day they would have what? Rest, which is the type and shadow of what Christ is going to do for them when he gives them their promised land over here, okay? It's a type and shadow. To keep the Sabbath today is not for us today, okay? It was for Israel, okay? Because it was to point them to Christ. So he was to give them 2 times worth on the 6th day so that they could eat for the 6th and what? 7th day. Because on the 7th day they couldn't go out and do anything. All right? Remember the guy with the sticks? He went out on the 7th day, got sticks, he was killed. Okay, to gather the sticks on the Sabbath day, he was killed. Okay? So understand there would be no work, which is why God had prepared them enough manna, all right, so that they could go for 2 days without having to work. All right, look at this. Drop down to verse 15 for the sake of time. All right, and you can read all of this on your own. All right, so you get the full understanding of this. Verse 15 of Exodus 16. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is what? Yeah. For they wist not what it was, okay, which means they knew not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord had given you to what? Eat. Now, this is the thing which the Lord had what?
Commanded.
Commanded, okay, watch this. What did he command? Gather it of every man according to his eating, and omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his what? Tents. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, and some what? Less. And some less. Drop down to verse 35. And the children of Israel did eat manna how many years?
40 years.
Until they came to a land inhabited, they did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer, okay, is the 10th part of an ephah. Okay, so now, watch this. How long should the trip have been?
Sure.
Huh? 11 days, okay? How long was it?
40 years.
Why?
Disobedience.
Disobedience.
And unbelief.
Disobedience and unbelief,
Yeah.
okay? Then they're murmuring, why in the world would God bring us out here to do all this right here? Right? So now, what is significant about the 40 years? There's all types of shadows and significance about this. Now,
Moses
how,
stayed in the desert 40 years.
okay, not in the desert, but in where?
Wilderness.
Well, he
No.
was with his wife now when he
On the
moved out.
mountain.
No.
He was near-
Yeah, that too, but
He went out with his wife, his new
not
wife,
years.
and he roamed around for 40 years.
Where did
He met his wife in
who?
Crete somewhere or whatever.
Where was Moses sold to?
He was in Egypt. So
How many years was he there?
40 years.
40 years. Okay, watch this. 40 is the number of trial and testing. Okay, so now,
Oh, I also, do this correspond with Jesus being in the wilderness for the 40?
Absolutely. Watch this. All right. This is where we're going with that. Okay. Watch this. All right. Now, watch this. So 40 is the number of trial and testing. All right. Now, Moses was 40 years in Egypt. So he would have learned their ways. He would have learned their customs. Okay. And then God brought them out of Egypt. Okay. Now, because of their own disobedience, this happened. But it took 40 years to get the 40 years of Egypt out of them. Now, when God brought them out of Egypt, it was a symbol of him bringing them out of the what? What does Egypt represent?
World.
The world. Okay? So he brought them out of the world to set them apart as a separate nation. Okay? So he brought them out of Egypt. This is the symbolism of this. Okay? He brought them out of Egypt, so he brought them out of the world. So it took them 40 years because of their own disobedience, but God always has a plan. Okay? And so the 40 years that they learned all of the things that were in opposition to God, it took them 40 years to learn the true ways of God. And even in the 40 years of their disobedience, God still provided for them. Because he was always been what? Gracious. Okay? So he provided for them even in those 40 years. Now, where was Jesus at when he fasted for those 40 days and 40 nights? He went up to the where? In the what? Wilderness. Okay? Same thing. Watch this. We'll get to that in just a second. All right? Go to, where do we leave off there? 36? Okay, go to, let's go to Psalms real quick. Let's read this real quick. Because I said, what is the food called? What is manna called? Whose food was this? Go to Psalm 78 real quick. Let's answer this. Go ahead. What's your question? Huh? Angels' food. Okay. This is what the angels ate. Okay.
My question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why they were killed, when did God repent? And for what reason? With Moses there.
Right. That's why they
why
were
they all
killed.
didn't die.
Right. God repented because Moses said, are you going to destroy the good with the wicked? And it says God repented, which is why to understand repentance, you have to understand that it's not asking for forgiveness of sin, because God repented the most in the Old Testament. And we know he has no what? Sin. So God repented, which means he changed his mind about what he would do, because Moses was the mediator. Okay? Now Christ is that what? Mediator. And God is not going to destroy the good with the wicked. Now, none of us are what? Good. But those of us who are in Christ are not going to be destroyed with everybody else, although we have just sinful flesh like any other non-believer. Okay? So understand, when it comes to this issue, all right, that God did not destroy them on behalf of what Moses pleaded to him, on behalf of the children of Israel. Moses was able to do that because he was the mediator between God and Israel. That's the importance that Moses had. Okay, look at this, Psalm 78. Let's start at verse. Read this whole chapter here. For the sake of time, we won't read it, but let's skip around a little bit in here. Let's start at verse 1 real quick. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. Which ye have heard and known, and our fathers have what? All right, so we know who the audience of this is, right? Israel, not the body of Christ. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he had done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their what?
Children.
All right, that generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children. Now, drop down to verse 10. They kept not the what?
Covenant of God.
And refused to walk in his what?
Law.
And forgot his works and his wonders that he had showed them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt and the field of Zon. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as a what? In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as of out of the great depths. Okay, we're going to get to these verses. He brought streams also out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the what?
Wilderness.
And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their what?
Lust.
Yea, they spake against God. They said, can God furnish a table in the what?
Wilderness.
Now, what does a table represent in Scripture?
Food,
Uh-huh.
no? Provision.
What do you do at the table?
Sit down.
Uh-huh. Who said that?
Eat.
Eat. But before you eat, you tell your children to what?
Pray.
Huh?
Set the table.
Set the table, okay? All right, you have to set the table. So the table is a place of preparation, okay? So now, what does this 23rd Psalm say about the table?
Prepare the table before me.
In the
Presence of my enemy.
presence of mine enemies, because that's what God was going to do. In the midst of this tribulation, he's going to provide for them a place of provision, which is that table. He's going to set a table in the midst of them. In the midst of their enemies, he's going to prepare this table. So they're asking, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Can he set us a table, a place of provision in this wilderness, or is he just going to bring us from Egypt to come out here and die of hunger? Okay, look at this. Behold, he smote the rock that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord heard this and was what?
Wrong.
You can imagine so.
Yeah.
Okay? So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. Though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven, man did eat what?
Angels.
Angels' food. He sent them meat to the what?
Full.
So he did all of these, and you can read these, but I wanted to get to that. He did all of this and fed them with angels' food, just so he could prepare a table for them in the wilderness, a place of provision. He had them. All right, God had them, but they just didn't believe him. It's the same way today, okay? Now, when you deal with this, this is an example for us, not an application for us, but God is the same way with us. You cannot lose salvation once you have believed in the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Why? Because God got you. Just as he had them, he has you today.
Amen.
You see that? So what we learn here is God's faithfulness to a people that even disobeyed him. So even when you don't do the right things today, God still what? He still got you. You see that? This is why this is an example to us, okay? Uh-huh.
That manna then, I'm just asking a question.
Uh-huh.
Would it be, and it say angels' food, type of food that kept them alive,
Uh-huh.
kept them from getting sick?
Uh-huh.
Would you think that?
They kept the angels from getting sick? The people, yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
That's why they had no sickness.
Right.
They lived.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that's still a miracle. You go 40 years in the same shoes. That's a miracle.
Right, and we about to read that. Look at Deuteronomy 8, yeah, because the people had the same shoes. You know, some of us, that couldn't get shoes as often as others. You got holes in your shoes, everything else. These people had the same clothes, the same shoes, and they weren't worn out. Yeah,
God was with them.
yeah.
Amen.
That's
Tastes like angel food cake.
What's that? I'm sure it was good because it says they were to the full, okay? So it had to be good enough for them to eat, right?
So going to the 40 days, right?
Go to Deuteronomy chapter 8 while he's speaking. Uh-huh.
Going to the 40 days in the wilderness, and then it talks about Jesus being hungry. Talk about the flesh part of things, and the devil asked him to turn the rocks into bread.
Uh-huh.
And then he said, "Man should not live off of bread alone."
Right.
This
Now-
is now corresponding.
Right. Why did Christ say that?
But he also says, "By every word that proceeds out the mouth of God." So I
Okay.
think they was only looking for those things that will fill them up from the flesh.
Right.
And they was missing the point of Moses giving them instructions, which caused a lot of them
Right.
to fade away.
Right.
So
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, they was in their they was in their flesh worrying about all the other things, and they was just not hearing what Moses said, what God was saying through Moses.
Right, which is why they kept wandering around. Okay, and again, we'll get to that in just a second, but that's a good correlation there. All right, now let me ask this: what did Israel have to carry around
When?
with them? Huh?
The ark.
The Ark of the Covenant. Now, what was in there?
Manna, stone, Aaron's rod.
Huh?
The commandments.
The stone, which was the 10 Commandments, manna from heaven, and Aaron's rod.
So they stored manna in the Ark of the Covenant.
No.
No, it was a bowl that had.
Huh?
No.
The bowl that had something in it.
Only the word store manna at all. Every
Christ
day
was there.
they received the food every day.
No,
All right,
but
now-
there was manna, and just like the rod of Aaron was in there to show a resurrection, and the stone was the law.
Okay. Go to Hebrews 9 real quick. Let's see what was in there.
What okay means?
You talking about Aaron's rod with a rod where you couldn't see nothing because of a limb that's dead, and then you look on it and it wasn't dead.
Look at Hebrews 9.
A show of resurrection. That's what that.
Right. So now, what was the Ark of the Covenant made with?
Don't touch it, whatever it was.
Gold, but what first?
It was wood overlaid with
Wood overlaid with gold.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why is it very specific? What does wood represent?
weakness in the sense.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Okay. What does gold represent?
Deity.
Deity.
Right.
So Christ was not only man 100%, but he was also 100% who?
God.
God. So the Ark of the Covenant, all these things was a shadow of Christ, which Israel should have known. So even the overlaid with wood with gold represented who? Christ. Now, what was in it? You said Aaron's rod. Aaron's rod what? What did his rod do?
It had a leaf on it that grew.
It budded, right? Remember, it's good. Now, that represents what? The
Resurrection.
resurrection, okay? Watch this. Look at Hebrews 9 and 4.
No, it's just you do just. I have a lot of time on my hands.
Now, look at verse 4. Which had the golden censer and the Ark of the Covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had...
Manna.
Okay, so you was right. They was wrong. And Aaron's rod that what?
Budded.
And the tables of the what? Covenant. Now, so what did the manna represent
That's the question.
in the covenant, in the ark?
God will provide.
The bread of life, the sustenance, which is who? Christ. You see that? All of these things represented Christ, and they should have known these things. Okay, go back. I just want to throw that in there. Go back to Deuteronomy 8. The covenant represented the 10 Commandments and the law, which was a schoolmaster to bring them to who? Christ. All of these things represented Christ, and they should have known these things.
That's also the word, which is Christ.
Absolutely. The word is Christ, which is why we ought to study it. Okay? Good. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 8. Look, let's start at verse 1. We have it? All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your what? Now, what was the land? What did the land have that he gave them?
And Canaan mountains.
And what else?
What you talking about?
What did it have? What did it have? It had big what?
Giants.
Right. The giants was in the land, but it had big grapes. You can imagine now going from manna for 40 years to eating these big grapes were so big, they had to carry by what? By two. By stick, right? Right?
Yeah.
So understand now, you went from complaining and murmuring, God still provided for you, to this abundance. All right, now, unfortunately, people throw themselves in the Old Testament. Now, it's only for our what? Learning, not application. But people will say, see, if you just keep going, God will just open it up for you. If you just have... That's not how God is operating now. He did that for the signed people because he was under a what? Covenant with them. He had to do that with them. You see that? All right, let's keep reading. Look at verse 2. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or what? No. That's why they did it, okay? And he did what? That's why he did it, to do what? Humble them. You can never learn and understand God unless you humble yourself.
Amen.
You will never know the word. That's why most people, when you bring them this truth, they get indignant. They will not humble themselves. Right? Because it's all about, well, I know mama and daddy was right because that's who taught me. So you saying my mama was wrong, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Right now, I don't say it like that, but that's exactly what I'm saying, okay? But most people, so you saying now, Bishop been preaching for 60 years. You saying he was wrong? That's absolutely what I'm saying. And not only am I saying he's wrong, but God's word is saying he's wrong, okay? But people, now, again, don't say it to him like that, okay? I'm just saying what I think sometimes, all right? But understand, most people hang on what they've been taught as opposed to truth. All right. So now, if what you're telling them, although it's truth, disagrees with what they've been taught, you're gonna have a fight on your hands. Okay. Because again, just think about what your parents taught you, a grandmother, whoever. Think about what they taught you, and if somebody says that they're wrong, think about how you would feel. Okay. All right. That age-old saying. Now, don't you talk about anybody. Don't talk about my mama. All right, so you call my mama a liar, that's going to be a fight now. All right, so understand, when people say things like that, that's how indignant they become. And all you're doing is what? Giving them the word. But people don't study the Bible. They study people in church and buildings, okay? That's what they study. All right, oh, I know church, they got, offering, they got praise, they got this, so I'm going to get there about 12. That's how people do it. Because they know the order of service. They know that to a T. So if I just want to hear the word today, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get there a little early today because I'm going to leave out before the word. Preacher ain't talking about nothing. So they know exactly what time to be there because people know church. They have a concept of God, but they do not know him. They just know about him. And there's a difference now when you know him than just knowing about him.
Amen.
Okay? Look at this. Verse 3, Deuteronomy 8. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to what? And fed thee with manna which thou knowest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by what? Bread alone. But by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Lord doth man what? Live. And this is what Jesus quoted in Matthew 4, okay? Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee. The clothes did not get old. Now, some of you ladies now that got 4 closets full of clothes, just imagine this now. All right? Your clothes never get old, okay? I'm sorry. Did I say 4? I meant 8. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shortchange you ladies. All right? Listen. But listen, the raiment waxed not what? Old, okay? It waxed not old, okay? Neither did thy foot what? Swell. Now, some of us can't walk from here to the car without our feet swelling. All right? They were walking for 40 years now. Jesus. And none of this happened because God provided for them. Even in the midst of their what? Disobedience. If God was that gracious to them, just imagine how he is to us. See, this is the example, okay? This is the example, all right? Look at this, verse 5. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord God does what?
Chasten thee.
Chasten thee. This is what he was doing. Now, God doesn't chasten us today. He allows for the sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, that is what you should what? Reap. You do something. Every choice that you make has a consequence, both naturally and spiritually, okay? So if you act crazy in front of somebody, naturally, they might act crazy back with you, okay? And you might be in trouble. And spiritually speaking, you may destroy your ambassadorship or witness to them because you acted crazy. So that sowing and reaping now allows, there's consequences. Whether good or bad, there's always a consequence for your actions, okay? All right, now, go to Exodus 17. Exodus 17. Let's deal with this issue of the water here. So we understand the manna, but they also had what? Water. And I'm going to end in John. Look at Exodus 17. Look at verse 1. So they were hungry first, and what did they say? They murmured against Moses and Aaron, and then God did what?
Fed them.
Fed them, provided them food. So now what's the next thing you think they're going to ask for?
Water.
All right, look at Exodus 17, look at verse 1. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys according to the commandment of the Lord and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the what?
People drink.
Now, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? Now he's saying, listen, now why are you coming to me with this nonsense? Didn't he just give you food? You think he's not going to give you no water either? And you can imagine the frustration with Moses, like, will you people ever listen? Now y'all got me out here for 40 years. It should have took me 11 days. You see that? So you can imagine his frustration now. Because he said, listen, now why y'all chide with me? Why y'all want to tempt God like this? You know, why even mess with him like this, all right? Look at this. Look at verse 3. And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against who?
Moses.
Here they go again. Now he just brought them out of Egypt. He just gave them manna to eat.
He saw all the miracles.
All the miracles. Now, after the parting of the Red Sea, what else did they need to see? I mean, and they looked back and saw that there was none of Pharaoh and his chariots left. What else do you need to see? And yet and still people say, oh, if I was back there, no, you would have did the same thing you're doing now, which is rejecting this word. You would have did the same thing then, okay? People, oh, if I would have walked with Jesus, ain't no way I wouldn't have. No, you would have did the same thing you're doing now. Right, yeah, right. I'm trying to show you the word now, you rejected it. So you would have did the same thing then that you're doing now. You see that? Uh-huh.
Didn't Moses had already just gave them water by dropping a tree into the lake?
Yeah, and that's why now they got to this, but they journeyed from this place to another place. Now they want water, they're thirsting, and understand now.
They just ate a bunch of potato chips, man.
And understand now, and you can imagine now how hungry you get after eating now, especially manna, which is bread. You're gonna get choked up. All right. So understand now. If you understand this issue here, look at verse 3. So they were murmuring against Moses and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with what?
Thirst.
Now they just said the same exact thing with the food. So you see this? So even the people, when God showed them a sign, they still didn't what? Believe it. So God says, listen, there's no more signs other than Christ. You believe that and follow me by faith.
Amen.
That's it. That's what we do today. Verse 4, and Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to what? Stone me. Right? Look at verse 5. And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people and take with thee of the elders of Israel and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the what? Rock. Thou shalt smite the rock, okay? All right, now. And there shall come water out of it, and the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us, or what?
No.
Or not? These same people doing all of this complaining, miracle after miracle, time after time, God has brought them out. They're doing the same type of murmuring. Same type of murmuring, right? This is the example for us, okay? As much as God has done for you, and I always say this, God, if you don't do anything else, you've done more than enough.
Amen. Amen.
You've done more than enough. All of this stuff he did for them, and yet every chance they got, they murmured. All right, now the question is, are you that way? Every chance you get, do you God, well, where are you?
Jesus.
is that every chance you get, most people are like that. Every chance you get, if this go bad, a lot of stuff go bad because of your own doing. Don't fault God for what you not doing or doing.
Amen.
You see that? A lot of it is your own doing. Right? Their own disobedience caused them to wander in this long journey, but yet they asking, where is God? You see that? All of these things, even in our country, they take prayer, all of these things out of schools, all of this bad stuff. Oh, where is God at now? Oh, now you want God. Now you want. See, so people do things of their own doing, but then blame and fault God and ask, where is he? He's still here. He's still here. All right? And I always give liken God to, in a natural sense, to a teacher that's giving a test. If you've ever been in school and took a test, does your teacher ever say a word?
Nope, except don't cheat.
Your teacher never says a word during the test. Why?
Test your knowledge.
Huh?
You should test it.
It tests because they've already taught you the days prior leading up to the what? Test. So during the test, they don't have to say what? Anything. If you studied and you learn, you'll be able to what? Pass the test. But guess what? Although the teacher is silent, they're still what? In the room.
Yeah.
You see that? So no matter what you've gone through, although it may seem like all of this stuff is going on in your life, guess what? God is what? Still there.
Amen.
He's still there. Now, have you followed his teaching and instructions that may comfort you in those times so that you can pass the test? Or are you murmuring against him every chance you get? Right? Look at this. Go to John. We'll end here. Go to Matthew 4 real quick. And I'm going to just show you. I'm going to just show you. Y'all don't talk about me. Just pray for me. Look at Matthew 4. I just want to show you where God quoted this here. Look at Matthew 4, verse 4. And notice now, Jesus was tempted in the wilderness for what? 40 days, 40 nights. He fasted. So he would have definitely been what? Hungry. He could have made, and Christ is who Israel should have been. So he did the right thing when they did the what? Wrong thing. Now, instead of murmuring against God, what did he say? He said exactly what Israel should have done. Look at verse 4 in Matthew 4. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by what? Bread, but by every word that proceeded out of the what?
Mouth of God.
Mouth of God. Look at verse 2. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward of what? Hungry. So was Israel. Right? But Christ didn't murmur against God. When the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made what? Now, could he have done that?
Sure.
Absolutely. But as the scripture says, let your yeas be your yeas and your nays be your nays. You ain't got to prove nothing to everybody all the time, okay? Now, except when it comes to the word, we ought to be able to what? Prove these things. All right, Romans 12 and 2. All right, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. All right, that we may prove what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God.
And that's what I was going to say, because it seemed like every time something didn't go their way, they always went back to Egypt.
Right.
We should have stayed there.
Yeah.
So, and I was going to say that earlier, when you look at Romans 12, he said, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed and renewing the mind. It took them 4 years to be transformed in the mind.
Right.
Because then they realized, okay, being brought out of the world is better.
Right.
Despite my circumstances, because
right.
they kept going back to the world,
Right.
Egypt,
Right.
and saying we should have, stay where we was at.
Right.
So a lot of times, as we go on this grace thing, and things just don't seem to go the right way, we find ourselves sometimes, going right back to the world
Right.
and try to do it on our own. Instead of saying, no, I'm just going to trust the word as it is.
Right.
I'm going to just steadfast there.
Very good point. Very
I'm
good
guilty
point.
myself, to
Right.
be honest.
Right.
So I find myself sometimes saying, yeah, this is what the words say, but I think if I take matters in my own hand,
Right.
going right back to Egypt,
Right.
and then
Right.
I find myself
Very good point. And the more we lean to our own understanding,
Yeah.
the more we gonna get in the way of God. All right.
Because the world gonna kick us in the face
Every time. Right. Every
They
time.
lean their own understanding
Right.
with the same
And,
outcome.
and it seems as though, dang, when I was out in the world, I had money, I had this. It seems as though you had a better life. But guess what? We're not living just for this life, but we're also living for the life to come. You see that? All right, so the devil entices you by what you can see. When I was out in the world, boy, I had all kind of stuff. You know, and that's why I hate when people say, oh, God delivered me from a miserable life of sin. No, it wasn't miserable. That's why I did it. It was fun, okay? It wasn't miserable. But understand the life which I now live, which I live by the faith of the Son of Christ, okay? It's even better now. Even if I don't have nothing, down to my name, it's better now. All right? Because even when I had all that stuff in the world, I wasn't at peace. But now I can have nothing and still be at peace. Things can be going on all around me, but now because of the word and how rich I am in the spirit, now I can still have peace even in the midst of what I'm going through. That's what the benefit of being in Christ is. And studying the word to show ourselves approved. Go to John chapter 4 here and we'll end here.
Another thing about the nation of what Jacob being, if you call it like it is, was unbelief. They had just seen him help defeat the Amalekites and all those.
Right.
Yet when he get to Canaan, they got to send spies in.
Right.
He didn't ask them to send spies in.
Right.
They went there, and then when the spies come back and tell them what they saw, they just saw him defeat all that and give them nothing, and they did no battle at all. And they couldn't accept.
And if you read the Old Testament, there's plenty examples that we can see of how God would promise them something, they would disobey. But even in that, he was still gracious towards them because he had a covenant with them. Okay, God is always gracious towards us, and no, we're not under a covenant with him, all right, but we're under the dispensation of grace in which God is dispensing his grace toward us by instructions that we ought to follow, all right?
And I was thinking that we're just like that today. We have all of the word and all of God's promises and the history of what he has done and what he will do.
Right.
But yet we still fall and we doubt.
Because the opposite of faith is what? Doubt. So because we don't know enough of the word, because faith coming by hearing and hearing by the word of God, and Hebrews 11:6 tells us it's impossible to please him without what? Faith. Grace is the only thing, faith is the only thing that grace accepts, okay? So now if that's the case, which it is, then if I don't know the word, of course I'm going to be that way. I'm going to doubt because I don't have enough what? Faith.
And I don't have enough knowledge.
I don't have enough understanding to know that God can and will keep me in perfect peace. I don't have enough understanding to know that because I don't know him. I don't know the word, okay? Look at this, John chapter 4. Now, the most famous passage in scripture is what?
God so loved the world
The
that
most,
he gave.
right, John 3:16. But that doesn't include the blood.
Nope.
Right? And if you give John 3:16 as a means for somebody to be saved, you have to also give them John 4:22. Look at John 4:22. Ye worship, ye know not what? What we know what we worship, but salvation is of the who? Jews. So this is Jesus speaking. So if you're going to read John 3:16, you got to read John 4:22. And that can't be salvation to Gentiles today. See that? Now, go up to John 4, verse 7. And I'm going to just skip around for the sake of time, but you can read this. I wanted you to show you about this, the rock, which was Christ, that he smote for the water. Okay? This is an example of the fulfillment of that scripture back in Exodus 17. Look at verse 7. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said unto her, give me to what? Drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the what?
Samaritans.
Now, what's the significance in this? Why does she say exactly what she just said in verse 9?
Because the dog, as far as the Jews were concerned.
Right? Remember, Jesus told them not to go into the Gentiles in any way of the who? Of the Samaritans. But only to who? The lost sheep of the house of Israel. So Jesus being a Jew, although she didn't realize who she was talking to, being a Jew, she had no need for to give water to him. He should have been giving it to her, because she was a Samaritan. Notice it says the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. But the Samaritans had dealings with the what? Jews. But the Jews were taught not to deal with them. They were considered to be Gentiles, just dogs, just like the Gentiles. So now it's interesting now that Jesus would ask her to give me to drink. Now, Jesus is going to say something and do this. He met her at the well for a purpose, okay? Now, look at verse 10. Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knowest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee what? Living water. Now, you can imagine how confused this woman might have been, okay? The woman said unto him, sir, thou hast nothing to draw with. Because they were at the well, and normally when you go to the well, you have something to put the water in, okay? Watch this. And the well is deep, from whence then hast thou that living water? She probably like, man, what in the world are you talking about? Right. You know? for those of us today, we'll say, man, this person here on drugs. This person crazy. Okay? Look at verse 12. Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well and drank there of himself, and his children and his cattle? Look at what she's asking them. Now, these are very relevant questions. Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall what?
Thirst again.
But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up unto everlasting what? Life. The woman said unto him, sir, give me this water. Okay, so now she went from confusion to, let me get that what you got, okay? All right, it's just like if you had some cold water, and people are like, where you got that water from? Man, I got this from down there. You give them this explanation. Listen, don't worry about that. It's hot out here. Let me get some of that water. All right? So that's what the lady, she went from confusion to, well, whatever water you talking about, let me have that. Okay? Which should be our response when it comes to the things of God. Okay? Look at this. The woman said unto him, sir, give me this water that I thirst what? None. Neither come hither to draw. Jesus said unto her, go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, thou hast well said, I have no what? Now he know exactly who she is. Okay? For thou hast had 5 what? All of this is a type of the nation of Israel now. And he whom thou now hast is not thy husband, and that says thou what? Truth. All right, so now you done had 5, okay? The one you got now is not your husband. You right about that, okay? All right, look at this. The woman said to him, sir, I perceive that thou art a what? She right there, you got to be somebody to know my business like that, unless you've been gossiping with somebody. All right, look at this. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Then Jesus said unto her, woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the what? Then he goes on to say those things. But understand now, Jesus was the forthcoming of what was presented as a what? Shadow back here. So when they smote the rock, he was the example of that living water. When they got bread from heaven, the manna from heaven, he was the example of that manna. And the Israel, this is why Paul is saying to our fathers as an example, because listen, Israel had these examples for Christ and they yet rejected him. Use this as an example to see when God says something, he says just what he means and means just what he says. See, these are the examples that I'm giving you. It isn't an example because we're not in that what? Group. But it's an example to us that are members of the body. Not that we got to beg for manna from heaven and all this other stuff, okay? But it's just an example to those of us in the body, understanding that God was gracious to them. He definitely will be gracious to us. Amen. Amen? Any questions, comments, observations? As we get down to chapter 10, it's going to be a lot of information. All right, I ask that you come back so you can learn the truth, because we're going to really get into the Old Testament, because Paul is going back here to show the Jewish believers within the body, all right, examples and things that they should have known. Don't just act a certain way now because you're under grace. Because listen, God hated it back here when your fathers did it, and he hates it now. Amen. Because remember, Corinthians, he's reproving them of their what? Behavior. By showing them and teaching them right doctrine. You see that? Which is what we ought to be doing, okay? Don't jump down somebody's throat because they're doing something bad. Because guess what? you did something bad, and you probably did it a couple of hours before you caught them. Okay, so understand, just give them the word. That way the mind is transformed, all right, and then they can move forward, okay? All right, again, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for those who visited with us today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Let's give them a hand. And thank God for all of you that are here, and also those who watched online. I thank God for those of you who are sharing the ministry online, and also here locally. So again, we're about the truth of God's word here, and that's what we do, is we teach the truth of the word, okay? All of the other stuff is a waste of what? Time. There you go. All right, nothing else. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you now for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for your love, your kindness, your truth. We thank you for who you are. We ask now that you continue to touch this ministry as we continue to go forward in word, truth, deed, and in doctrine. We ask now that you continue to build us up in our inner man, that we may walk according to your will and be an example and also an ensample. As we are ambassadors of Christ and we have been given the ministry of reconciliation. Help us to understand, Father God, that we have the peace with God and also the peace of God, which keeps our hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. We ask now to help us to be content in whatever situation we may find ourselves in. Help us not to think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think, but help us to humble ourselves, waiting for that opportunity that we may be examples and ensamples of Christ. So in Jesus' name we do pray. Thank God. Amen.